Do you love the Joker? Oh, hell yes. You love Mia Goth? Oh, hell yeah. Do you love crazy, hot girls? Hell If you love all the things I just mentioned, then you will love Pearl. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, what the hell is Pearl? Well, Hell is the prequel to a horror movie called X, which stars Mia Goth. Oh, hell yeah. X is also directed by Ty West, which is basically a homage to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it also has soft porn in it.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
You know, so it's kind of a win-win. If you love gore, you love soft porn, X is the film for you. Ty West teams up with Mia Goth to shoot their prequel, and my god, what a fantastic movie Pearl is. I loved X, you know, X is a great film, but I love Pearl even more. I think with Pearl I was expecting it to be like another horror slasher, but what I got was an excellent character study which draws massive parallels to the movie Joker in my opinion. We start the movie meeting Pearl as a young woman, maybe sort of late 20s, maybe kind of like mid 20s, and she is living on a farm with her parents in 1910s during the Spanish flu and also World War I. Her husband, Howard, is away fighting in World War I across Europe, and she is now stuck on this farm with a father who is paralysed in a wheelchair and an over-controlling mother. Now with Pearl, you literally already understand what her motives are, what she likes, what are her dreams, you know? What's holding her back? Like, the movie is a full-on character study about Pearl. This isn't really a horror film, to be honest with you. Like, I know it's classified as a horror, and I get that completely, but it doesn't really seem like a horror in my eyes. You know, there is horror elements, but this is a character study movie at its finest. Straight away, we see her killing ducks to feed alligators, which shows her being comfortable around death. We can see that her dreams of being a famous dancer and fly off to see the world, but we know there is obstacles in her way, such as her parents. Like, her mother is controlling her and making her stay on the farm, and her father not being able to look after himself because he's paralysed in a wheelchair are the obstacles that are stopping Pearl from reaching her goals. First part of the movie is solely building and understanding her character. We see her doing mundane, boring tasks around the farm to make it feel like it's boring and like monogamous. You know, like looking after her father while she's bathing. Yeah, that was a weird one. But we are shown Pearl's dreams quite early on, and we find this out because Pearl sneaks into a cinema hall when her mother sent her to buy her father medicine in town. She watched the showgirls perform and dreamt of being one of those girls someday. She meets Johnny, the film projectionist, outside the hall, and he sort of like compliments her, you know, starts giving her the old sweet talk, and then basically he stated that he hopes that one day he sees her on screen. Pearl is kind of swayed by his words, you know, she likes this. This is like compliments which she hasn't received ever since her husband has gone off to war. You know, someone other than herself, you know, believed in her beauty and talent. You know, and she started to wonder if she was denying herself the pleasures of life only because of her parents, you know, and the situation she's sort of stuck in. And this leads on to like this one scene that is a bit weird, you know. So on her way back, you know, Pearl starts to get very freaky with a scarecrow that she finds in the cornfield.
How'd that get in there?
You know, she starts making out with it, you know, she starts touching it up. I mean, you know, I think his opening line to her was, "Hey?" But still, you know. guilt starts taking over her because she fantasizes Johnny as that scarecrow. I know, very kinky. But then she kind of like gets up and then sort of like stops making out, and then basically 4 screams, like Skyrim level screams.
I'm married!
I missed the part where that's my problem.
But she can't help herself, and she continues to make out with the scarecrow and eventually bang it. You know, this is basically just showing Pearl that she's lonely. You know, the absence of her husband that's gone off to war and the lack of friends forced her to escape this reality. You know, the war coupled with Spanish flu, you know, affected Pearl's youth very drastically. You know, sooner or later Pearl starts, you know, enjoying torturing her own father because of the fact he's weak and he can't fight back. It's a lot like the farm animals, you know, she kills for pleasure. She is also desperate to leave this farm and be rid of her parents, but that leaves her with a choice, you know, to stay and be the good daughter to a mother that the mother wants, you know, or go and try to fulfill her dreams and actually, you know, try and make it in her life. Pearl then sneaks out one night to meet up with Johnny, and not the scarecrow Johnny, actual Johnny. And he decides to show her some porn. Yes, I mean, as you casually do, you know. Invite a girl out, show her some porn. And then he has the audacity to say,
Really?
You could even be in pictures like this. I know, I'd watch you.
You silver-tongued devil, you.
I mean, as you can see, Johnny wants to be that scarecrow. But the most important thing to take away from this scene is that she mentions that she would rather her parents die rather than sort of run away from them. And it's the first time that Pearl actually expresses how her life would be easier if her parents died, a thought that would consume her for the rest of the movie and the rest of her life. You know, the next day, Pearl then starts to wheel her father to the edge of the swamp and teasing him by almost feeding him to an alligator.
Daddy, but this is not...
Like, what is this woman doing, man? Like, if she was my daughter, man, bruv, like, this is not good. But, yeah, you know, this man is on his final days, and seeing his daughter try to kill him and wife loathe him purely because of, you know, of his state, it's just heartbreaking to see, man. It really is. Like, I mean, he's kind of like a bit of like a tragic character. You know, you really do kind of feel for him because none of this isn't really his fault. He's just in a terrible situation. So we can begin to see her actually start to follow through with her thoughts. But lucky for the father, Pearl's mother Ruth comes to rescue the day. But let's fast forward to a very important scene. The scene where she accidentally, yes, accidentally, sets fire to her mother. Now, Ruth finds a film poster knowing that Pearl has snuck out of their house to watch films. You know, Ruth is understandably angry because of the fear that she might have brought, you know, the Spanish flu back home. Pearl also tells her that she is going to an audition to the church hall so she can dance in the movies. You know, this is her one big chance to do it. Ruth is furious, you know. Now, Ruth doesn't want her going as she believes that a roof and food, you know, is enough to make people happy. Also, the fact that Ruth knows Pearl's secrets and violent tendencies, and she fears for Pearl's sake that people will abandon her if they ever found out. She knows that Pearl is mentally ill and didn't support her putting herself up on stage and showing the world who she actually is. Now, Ruth is a very interesting character because she is alone, taking care of her husband and working very hard to provide food on the table, but she never felt like murdering her husband for her fate. This was the massive difference between her and Pearl, whereas that's the very thing Pearl is fearing she would become. You know, a life filled with regret. Ruth and her end up having a fight and accidentally gets caught on fire from the stove being left on. She then flames on like the dude from Fantastic Four, and Pearl does eventually, you know, pour some water to put the fire out, but she, you know, she did it in like slow motion, man. Like She was strolling, man. She didn't really care. But alas, you know, half of her face is already burnt. She ends up chucking her in the cellar. Also, the father is just still there chilling, just watching this all unfold, you know, watching his wife and daughter fight, and then the daughter murdered her. And he's just there, just chilling, you know, food's still on the table. He can't move, man. And while he's there just chilling, you know, Pearl just straight up just leaves after chucking her mother, like, dying in the cellar. And guess who she goes to meet up? That's right, Johnny. And you know what? They get it on. It all gets flipped upside down the next day. Pearl wakes up next to Johnny after their night of sweet, sweet lovemaking. Johnny then takes her home so she can get ready for audition. But as they get to the place, you know, all is not right, you know. I mean, it's so obvious in the film, but I mean, you just gotta walk in, you know, there's maggots infesting, you know, he even complains about a noise coming from the cellar, which is the mother basically dying. And then he asks, what is that noise? And Pearl's like, oh, that's just the dog. And then, like, he basically catches her out on the lie, like, 5 minutes later. You know, she isn't particularly smart in this. He instantly just wants to get out, you know, and can you blame him? You know, he's obviously gone in here and he's like, nah, man, I'm out of this. So anyway, he starts to notice that Pearl isn't the person, you know, he thought her to be. You know, and he wants to leave, and then Pearl starts clocking that he's turning cold on her. The very thing her mother told Pearl about people finding out, you know, who she really is and fearing her was coming true. As well as Pearl's feels of being loved and adored can all be seen when Johnny wants to leave. You know, everything that she's feared is just, she can see it. And then that's why she flips out at him. And then she ends up stabbing him with a pitchfork. You know, as you casually do. You know, if someone pisses you off, you stab him with a pitchfork. And then also feed his body to an alligator.
Au revoir, poor Johnny!
You always knew something was ending up in the alligator's mouth. I mean, they've like teased it throughout the whole entire thing. Before leaving her audition, she also kills her father. Poor old dude. He's still in the same place. You know, she kills him by suffocating him. And finally, she's free of her mum and she's free of her dad. And she can, you know, the thought at the very start of the film has come true. And she can finally go off to the audition and dream of being the star she's always wanted to be. Pearl gets the audition and meets Mitzi, her sister-in-law. Now, Mitzi is kind of stage fright and like afraid, whereas Pearl feels confident. Pearl ends up going first because Mitzi asks her to, and she gives the best performance in her mind to date, giving it her all. Like, she was fantastic in her mind. We actually don't see the reality of it. However, the judges basically tell her she isn't blonde enough or hot enough. How dare they, man? How dare they? Mia Goth, you're one smoking lady. Don't listen to it. But anyway, Pearl, as we can tell, is not great at handling rejection. Absolutely breaks down, screaming and crying. She knows her one and only chance to get away and fulfill, you know, every part of her dreams just vanishes. She's outside the church. She's crying. Mitzi then sees her and offers to drive Pearl home. And she then discusses with her how she doesn't think she's, you know, all that well or mentally well. Mitzi then explains that she should talk to Howard about it and more or less says, pretend I'm Howard and tell me everything. This scene right here is by far the best in the movie. The acting from Mia Goth is truly outstanding. Pearl ends up giving a 5 to 10 minute monologue and basically pours her heart out on everything she has done wrong and all of her feelings. And also the camera doesn't move, it stays perfectly still throughout this whole entire monologue. It stays on her and you can feel every emotion and hurting coming from the character. Like, this monologue alone deserves at least a nomination for an Oscar. and she wasn't even nominated. She wasn't even looked upon, man. Like she is so brilliant in this scene, and she's so brilliant in the whole entire movie. And it's a massive disgrace it wasn't even recognised by any awards. Like, I get it's a small budget horror. I get that Pearl won't be nominated for like a lot of stuff, but her performance in this movie really and truly deserves recognition. So I'm giving you recognition, Mia Goth. Well done, man. In this monologue, she talks about how she pretended to be this perfect girl for Howard because he came from privilege and she wanted off the farm, but he would end up wanting to stay on the farm, so she never got to leave. You know, she talks about how she had a miscarriage and she was glad about it, how she slept with another man. If you haven't seen this, please go watch Pearl, man. Like, I don't want to tell you any more about this monologue, I just want you to actually see it and watch it for yourself. Anyways, Mitzi, after hearing all the things Pearl has confessed to, begins to walk out, as you do. Which is smart, But what isn't smart is telling Pearl that she got the part and will be dancing in the movies, basically stealing Pearl's dreams away from her, which is the dumbest thing you could ever tell to someone who is massively upset, who loves to kill, and is basically telling you, I'm not mentally well. You know, not a clever girl. I mean, she literally, the words dumb and blonde literally combined together for her. So naturally, Pearl starts chasing her with an axe and chops her up and feeds her to the alligators. So they've got Johnny and this Mitzi girl to feast on. Pearl now wanting to undo all of the bad decisions because, you know, the dreams have now fleeted. She wants to undo all the decisions and tries to do up the house, make do with what she's got, just like how her mother advised. She cleans up her father and her mother and places them at the dinner table, decomposing, but at least they're clean.
Will be clean. Only when you are clean will you know my power.
Then Howard comes back from the war. He comes home, he jumps off the Jeep, starts whistling on his way home, wants to come home to this like beloved wife and family. But what he got was seeing her parents infested with maggots at the dinner table with all this food which is also getting eaten by maggots.
The fucking bass is fucking raw!
And Pearl comes out with a smile that says more than 1,000 words. Like, you can see she wants to start again, start anew, but she knows she can never live a normal life, especially with all of her mental health. In how she sees someone to love her, to support her, no matter what, because you still see them together in X. But that begs the question, was he seriously okay with all this and was just caring and loving because he loved her so much? Or was he generally scared and feared her, just like how Ruth said, and just eventually became a part of her murdering her ways due to his fear? I don't know what, I don't really know if it's either one, but that's for you guys to decide. But that smile and shot at the end is actually scary, and again, amazing acting. I think the director told Mia Goth to just continuously smile, and then just left the camera rolling and just keep doing it. That's why all of her muscles are twitching, the tears are rolling down her face. You can actually, it actually shows, it's a face of masking pain, and basically Pearl being content with what she has, but never actually truly being happy. I know this has been a long video, so I'll wrap it up. But there's still so much you could talk about this movie. The cinematography, it's a star. The look of the Wizard of Oz, the popping colours, it all massively works for this movie. The costumes are great. The setting is great. The writing is great. It just hits 10s and A stars all across the board. And that's why I'm giving this movie a 10 out of 10. It just generally is just an awesome movie. Layered and deep, and just everyone put a lot of effort into this movie, especially Mia Goth and Ti West. But Mia Goth just steals it, man. She really does steal it. I gotta give her mad props. you deserved to be nominated for an Oscar for Pearl. If you're watching this, Mia Goth, you're probably not, but you deserve to be at least nominated. But yeah, you know, 10 out of 10. Massively deserved, the 10 out of 10. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, tell me what you thought of the film. Tell me in the comments. Also, tell me what films you'd like me to review. I would love to hear from you guys. I'd love to talk to, you know, everyone who watches the videos and talk to them and say what their opinions are and how they differ to mine. It would be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to get some more interaction with everyone. But anyways, if you liked the video, please give it a like. If you want to watch more of my videos and, you know, keep up to date and keep up with the discussion, then subscribe to me. You know, it'd be awesome. But yeah, keep it real, guys. I'll see you on the next one, man. Take it easy.